The courtroom in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, was already tired before the day had truly begun. The air felt heavy with certainty, the kind that settles in when everyone believes the ending is already written. A young woman sat alone at the defense table, shoulders drawn inward, eyes fixed on the worn wooden surface as if it might swallow her whole. Across the room, power waited calmly, polished and confident, backed by money so vast it felt untouchable. Then something happened that no one in that room could have predicted, something so quiet yet so disruptive that it changed the direction of every life present that morning. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that ordinary people can rise in extraordinary moments, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The woman at the center of the storm was named Rebecca Moore. She was a nurse's aide, a single mother, and a person who had learned to survive by staying invisible. She had been accused of leaking confidential data from a private medical facility owned by a healthcare conglomerate led by billionaire Thomas Whitaker. The accusation alone was enough to ruin her life. Her job was gone, her savings drained, and her reputation shredded long before a judge ever reviewed the facts. What made it worse was that the evidence against her was thin, technical, and wrapped in language designed to confuse anyone without a law degree. It was the perfect kind of case for a powerful corporation to win quickly and quietly. Rebecca's court-appointed attorney had tried. At least, that was what people said. But the pressure was relentless. When Whitaker's legal team arrived with their towering stacks of documents and cold, confident expressions, something broke. On the second day of proceedings, her lawyer withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences and an inability to continue. In real terms, it meant Rebecca was now alone. The judge prepared to postpone briefly before assigning another overworked public defender, and the room settled into a hush that felt like a slow funeral march. At the back of the courtroom, near the double doors everyone ignored, stood a man named Michael Carter. He wore a faded gray janitor's uniform, his name stitched crookedly above the pocket. For 15 years, Michael had cleaned that courthouse. He knew the rhythm of the building better than most of the attorneys who practiced there. He knew which stairwells echoed, which judges drank too much coffee, and which benches groaned under pressure. He also knew the law in a way no one expected. Michael had once been a law student in Indiana. Life, however, had not followed the neat path promised in textbooks. His wife had fallen ill, medical bills had piled up, and a single desperate mistake involving a forged signature had ended his legal career before it began. He served his time, lost his license before he ever earned it, and took the only work that would feed his son, Andrew. Cleaning floors became his penance in his classroom. Night after night, he read discarded motions, studied transcripts left behind, and listened silently to arguments that echoed long after the lawyers left. When Rebecca's attorney quit, something in Michael shifted. He had watched the case unfold from the shadows, piecing together the inconsistencies, recognizing how the digital evidence could point in multiple directions. He had seen fear in Rebecca's posture that mirrored his own from years earlier. As the judge prepared to move on, Michael stepped forward, heart pounding so loudly he feared it would be heard across the room. The sight of a janitor approaching the bench caused a ripple of confusion, then quiet amusement. What followed was not loud or theatrical. Michael simply made his presence known and offered himself as representation, not with arrogance, but with a calm certainty rooted in years of silent study and personal loss. The courtroom froze. It was the kind of moment people later described as unreal, as if the air itself had stopped moving. The judge hesitated, the billionaire's legal team exchanged looks of disbelief, and Rebecca finally looked up, hope and fear colliding in her eyes. The days that followed were brutal. Michael was allowed to proceed only after a series of intense evaluations and procedural hurdles. He slept little, spent his nights cross-referencing statutes, and his days cleaning the same floors where powerful shoes had walked unchallenged for decades. Every mistake he made was magnified. Every success was dismissed as luck. But slowly, methodically, the narrative began to crack. Michael dismantled assumptions with patience. He highlighted how access logs could be manipulated, how shared credentials were common in understaffed facilities, and how the timeline conveniently ignored security breaches reported months earlier. He brought humanity into a room accustomed to numbers. Rebecca's life was no longer a footnote but a central truth. Jurors began to lean forward. The billionaire's lawyers, once relaxed, grew tense. Outside the courtroom, Michael faced ridicule. People questioned his right to stand there, to challenge a system that had already judged him once before. But Andrew watched from the gallery every day, seeing not a janitor, but a man refusing to stay small. That alone fueled Michael through exhaustion and doubt. As the trial neared its end, the weight of it all became almost unbearable. Rebecca's future hung in the balance, as did Michael's fragile redemption. The final arguments were not grand. They were human. They asked the court to consider truth over convenience, justice over speed. When the jury finally returned, the silence was so complete it felt sacred. The verdict cleared Rebecca of all charges. The room reacted not with cheers, but with stunned stillness. A life had been handed back. Rebecca wept quietly, her hands covering her face as years of fear poured out. Michael stood still, overwhelmed, knowing that for the first time in decades, his past no longer defined his worth. If this story is already stirring something inside you, please pause for a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in justice, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these stories reach hearts that need them. In the weeks that followed, the case sent ripples far beyond that courthouse. Investigations revealed systemic flaws, and the healthcare conglomerate settled quietly, its power dented by truth. Michael was offered opportunities he never imagined, including a role as a legal consultant focused on wrongful accusations. He still cleaned floors sometimes, not out of necessity, but as a reminder of where he came from. Rebecca returned to nursing, stronger and more compassionate than before. She and Michael remained connected, bound by a chapter of life that neither would ever forget. Andrew grew up watching his father prove that dignity is not granted by titles, but earned through courage. Just before we reach the end, we have one special request. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, because your words might give someone else the strength to stand up when the world expects them to stay silent. In a system often criticized for forgetting the human soul, one janitor reminded everyone that justice does not always wear a suit. Sometimes it carries a mop, walks quietly, and waits for the moment when courage matters more than credentials. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or reminded you to believe in second chances, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement keeps hope alive, one story at a time.